Hi there, Glocal citizens. Welcome back to the podcast that inspires a borderless mindset around manifesting a new world. I am your host, Florence Adu, coming to you from the Mile High City. I am in Colorado. I think I mentioned that I was in birthday celebration mode for Mom. We had an awesome healing spa day at a new place in Parker. I'll put a link to that in case you're in the Colorado area, because saunas, red light healing therapy, cold plunging, vitamin C showers. This is the life, guys. This is the life. And I don't mean to brag, but when you gotta heal, you gotta heal. And so I think that is a good hint to what my guest does. And background on this, I was at an NYU event. We are both NYU alums. And we bumped into each other so unexpectedly earlier this year at an event at NYU Accra. Shout out to Glocal citizen Frankie. And oh my gosh, it was a blast from the past. So we're both like, oh my gosh, what is this? What's going on here?
Like, Bryonn, what are you doing?
Yes, exactly. And then to know what he's doing, it was just like amazing. So let me get to his bio and then we'll get into our conversation, which will be absolutely fruitful. He is a poet, actor, prison activist, playwright, scholar, author, hip-hop artist, and professor of African American Studies, theater, film, and television, and world arts and cultures in the School of the Arts and the School of Law at the University of California at Los Angeles. That's UCLA. Playing over 40 characters, his one-man show, Lyrics from Lockdown, won Best Solo Performance from the LA Weekly and the NAACP. Executive produced by the late and great Harry Belafonte, the show tells stories of wrongful incarceration through spoken word poetry, hip-hop theater, calypso, comedy, and classical music. He founded the Prison Education Program at UCLA in 2015, and in 2019, the program and his performances at the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts were featured on the debut episode of LA Stories, which won an Emmy Award. Woohoo! His work has been featured on a diverse range of stages, including the Apollo Theater, Carnegie Hall, Lincoln Center, the Public Theater in New York City, the Black National Theater in Harlem, NJPAC in New Jersey, the Actors Gang Theater in Culver City, California, Los Angeles Theater Center, Festival de Liege in Belgium, and One Theater Festival in Singapore, Universidad de las Americas in Mexico, and Muteesa Royal University in Uganda, as well as Rikers Island, Marion Prison in Ohio, TEDX at Ironwood State Prison, and Sing Sing Prison. He's performed at over 250 colleges and prisons in the US, Africa, Asia, Latin America, and Europe, and he will be soon adding Ghana. Bryonn Bain, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me join you today.
Yeah. Yes. So let's get started. Let's jump right in. Where are you from? Where are you local? And what is your craft?
So planet Earth is my place of birth.
Okay.
I born in New York City, lived in Brooklyn most of my life, but my parents are from Trinidad. Trinidad, they came to Brooklyn from Trinidad in the 60s and 70s. We traveled quite a bit. I lived a lot of places, but Brooklyn more than anywhere, about half a dozen neighborhoods in Brooklyn. So Bed-Stuy, Crown Heights were the first two places I called home on planet Brooklyn. And then I've lived in California. I've lived in LA for the last 10 years. I was recruited by UCLA 10 years ago to start a prison education program here, like the one I started at NYU 8 years ago. So those are some of my locations. And, but Ghana treated me very, very well. I may be, spending more time there very soon. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We like to hear that. And so what do you say is your craft? I mean, I gave a long description, but how do you describe your craft?
Yeah, that was a mouthful. Thank you. That was very, very generous of you. I am definitely a storyteller, and I'm from a long line of storytellers. And, I often think I'm probably the least talented person in my family, just trying to keep up with all of them. My dad was a calypsonian. He sang calypso music in Trinidad,
Nice.
won his way to the Apollo Theater in Harlem.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, where he performed one amateur night at the Apollo with Muhammad Ali in the audience.
What? Wow.
I just learned that doing oral history with him. I said, Dad, you never told me that? He said, yeah. I said, what, did you talk to him? He said, the only thing I remember Ali saying was, somebody jumped up and said, "Muhammad Ali, I want to fight you." And Ali turned to the guy without blinking and said, "If you ever dream that, you better wake up and apologize." So, my dad's a storyteller. My mother is a healer. She was a nurse for 40 years. And so I feel like storytelling and my medium, the media I use is theater and hip hop and spoken word poetry. And I've been blessed to work in film and television. My son called me yesterday. It's like, "Dad, I just saw you on Hulu. You're on the ODB film." I was like, "Yo, man, you remember I did that during COVID?" Yeah. So I've been blessed to work in TV and film, but theater and the gumbo of all those arts together is what really excites me. Pulling together different storytelling techniques and methodologies really gets me going.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So a little bit to unpack there. My mother is also a nurse. And it's just kind of bringing Ghana full circle. When I met Ali once, Muhammad Ali, I met him once at during the dot-com boom. Someone was doing some event and he said, "I've been to Ghana. Beautiful people just like you."
That's right. That's right. That's right. Absolutely.
I loved it. Yeah.
Good speaker.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. So at least my dad was a huge Ali fan. And so when I met him, I was like, "My dad loved you." And so, yeah, I love it.
Great.
Let's talk more about the why, the where. Like you mentioned being recruited to UCLA for your work in prisons. Why the where of this prison mission?
So I first went into prisons in New York in the 80s, in the late 80s. I had two cousins who were in a rap group that was on fire back then. They were in a group out of Flatbush, Brooklyn called the Fushnikins.
Oh, I remember them. Oh my
That's
gosh.
right. Okay. All right. So, some of these young cats who think, Biggie and Pac invented hip hop would not know.
Yeah.
About the Fushnikins. But,
Right.
the Fushnikins are doing like Black Asian fusion for Wu-Tang. You know what I'm saying? Jumping out of Chinese food boxes and you know what I'm saying? So two of them are my cousins, Lennox and Roderick, and we were in my uncle's basement apartment in Flatbush and talking to them, and I'll never forget, they had a poster. This was like, oh man, they had a poster. They were going on tour with Digital Underground.
Yep.
And Digital Underground, rest in peace, Shock G. Their big song at the time was the Humpty Hump, right? So everybody was saying, "Humpty dance is your chance to do it, baby." Everybody was singing that. It was everywhere, right? Humpty Hump was everywhere. And they were on tour opening up for Digital Underground. And Digital Underground had a backup dancer who nobody had ever heard of at that point, by the name of Tupac Shakur.
Wow, that's right. That's
my
right.
cousins were on tour with Digital Underground, Shock G, Tupac, and we saw the poster, and we were making music, we were writing rhymes, we were singing, we were doing acting, and we were like, man, how do we be like, y'all? These are our big cousins. They're like 3-4 years older than us. We're like 13, 14, 15. They're like 18, 19. We're like, we want to be like y'all, man. And they're like, well, what do y'all got to perform? You got to do shows. You want to get out there and you got to, actually test your stuff out. So we said, cool, we're going to do that. The next week, never forget, this sister named Paula Medina. She was managing like Tracy Morgan, other acts in New York. We were introduced to her and she was like, listen, I got this holiday show coming up at the Fishkill prison up in upstate New York. If y'all come do the show, I'll manage y'all. I'll get y'all a bunch of shows.
Wow.
Yeah, of course, we'll do that. We left there like, what did we just sign up for? Oh my goodness, we're gonna go to a prison. Oh my, it's like 1989. You know what I'm saying? So, and we're like young teenagers. We went, we did it, we sang, we rapped, we did skits, we acted out scenes, we sang holiday songs, and this room full of brothers gave us a standing ovation.
Oh,
and
wow.
All these brothers looked like our uncles, our cousins.
Yeah.
And all these old heads came. We broke bread with them afterwards. They were like, thank you so much, young blood, for coming up in here. Because people in prison are the easiest people in the world to forget about.
Yes.
Y'all didn't forget about us.
Yes.
So we went back every year for like the next 10 years during the holidays.
Wow.
To different prisons all around upstate New York.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of how we cut our teeth as artists. It was like, in these spaces that most people only know about through television and movies. So that really kind of cemented that connection. Now, fast forward, years later, I never had any trouble with the law until I went to law school. In my second year of law school, I ended up being racially profiled with my brother and my cousin. And coming out of a club, the Latin Quarter, we're thrown in jail for a crime we didn't commit. The first experience was overnight, but that what followed really changed our lives. And that was kind of sort of the sequence of events that kind of led to this in ways that I can go into more detail, but that's the genesis of it all.
This was national news because yeah. So this will be in the show notes, folks. But when you check out Bryonn's site and just all the background, this was a 60 Minutes story. This was a Village Voice story. This was a real groundbreaking conversation that needed to be had. And it's still relevant today, which is what is so painful about our stories, right?
Yeah.
And so, sure, you're this creative. You're rapping, you're giving these performances, but you're a scholar. I mean, NYU, Columbia, Harvard. Tell us about your intellectual academic pursuits and why.
I got into law school and I deferred so I could go to NYU.
Okay.
I deferred so I could go to NYU to do a master's. I wanted to have more control over my educational experience than I knew law school was going to allow me. And so I took 2 years to do a master's, started off the Wagner School at NYU, interested in public policy and nonprofits, and then ended up switching to the Gallatin School.
Yeah.
Where I could take courses at Wagner, at Tisch, at an Africana
I
studies.
remember. Yeah. Because I was at Wagner and then you was like, I moved. Okay.
And the funniest thing is I brought my dad in to do an information session and he heard the pitch. He's like, no, I think I'm going back to Brooklyn College. And I was like, I think this is the place for me.
Right.
And I ended up finishing at Gallatin, but then also I worked with the dean. So I got to go to Senegal. I got to go to my first trip to Africa was because I worked with the dean and was in charge of the admissions process for who got to go to Senegal.
Okay.
1997, I think, almost 30 years ago. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that was a life-changing decision. My mother's an immigrant from Trinidad. My parents both immigrated from Trinidad. So, I have the weight of be a doctor or be a lawyer or I don't know, whatever else out there is not even on the same page, So I was like, I'm gonna get a Juris Doctorate. I get a law degree. She said, boy, you can't prescribe medicine. You're not a real doctor, But I'm the oldest of 5. So education was critical,
Yeah.
So do all you can. So I ended up bringing a physician home to her. So she was like, okay, that's it. So, so I went to Columbia and did really well. I did study political science and Black studies. I feel like it's so funny. I run into people I went to school with, and it's crazy to see Ben Jealous he was my big brother in college, became the president of NAACP. I was on student council with Eric Garcetti, who became the president of the city council in Los Angeles, and then an ambassador to India. So I feel a little bit like an underachiever in my pursuits. But NYU was really good to me. NYU, it's the first place I taught after I finished. I went back and taught at Gallatin, took students into Rikers. But going to Harvard was also, opportunity of a lifetime. To be honest, I felt like the experience, had it not been for Cornel West and for Lonnie Guinier and Charles Oakley, Sophia Elijah, a core group of
that were there, who
really looked out for me. It was a very alienating space, I felt like the first year of law school was like intellectual boot camp. And I feel like my fundamental assumptions about the universe were very different from many of the people that I was in class with. I'll never forget I went to the first year, everyone came to class dressed in suits with a stack of envelopes when they used to use that for interviews for jobs. And, people were like, well, are you going to interview? I was like, oh, the firms are on campus? You're not going to interview with the firms or the investment banks or the FBI or the CIA? I was like, no interest in any of that. And I remember going to Lonnie Guinier's office, first Black woman to be tenured law professor at Harvard Law School. And same Professor Guinier, all these people are all dressed up and they're in their fine suits and they got their stack of envelopes. And I just feel really out of place here. And she said, you know what, Bryonn, don't worry. I didn't have any envelopes either. And I was like, got it. And I was just down. And it was really her. It was once this experience happened, it was her class, Critical Perspectives on the Law, Gender, Class, and Race. I will never forget. She gave us the assignment, write about a personal experience of injustice. Tell your story. She was encouraging us to tell our stories. And when I submitted that, that's when she said, it was the week after I got arrested. She said, Bryonn, you really should submit this article to be published. And I was like, Amadou Diallo had just been killed a few months earlier, by the NYPD. I said, we gonna tell you a story about a brother getting locked up overnight. What difference will it make? And she was like, no, the way you wrote it, rewriting the Bill of Rights and putting in the language of how you really felt the police treated you, I think there's something here. So I sent it to the New York Times, and they were like, "Oh, it's a little racy for us," but send it to the Village Voice, and the Village Voice made it a cover story. It got over 100,000 responses. It was viral before viral was even a thing.
Yeah.
And really, the platform that I had between that, when 60 Minutes called and Michael Wallace wanted to interview us and take us through what happened, that platform gave me an opportunity to do a lot of things. I had started Blackout Arts Collective at NYU, which was doing hip hop theater, spoken word showcases that were like focusing on folks of color. And we had, chapters in 10 cities within a year of this story, because I was able to kind of be an ambassador for spreading that. But then the Lonnie, after my arrest happened and the cops started to actually retaliate. The cops whose names and information I got in 60 Minutes began giving out information. So 3 years later, I'm actually teaching at NYU, and I'm coming home from an award ceremony, and I'm wearing this, a custom-made tweed suit I had done in India. I'm looking good. I'm like coming from this award ceremony. Danny Glover gave us the Union Square Award for Arts and Activism, and the cops pulled me over again. And now they pulled me over a second time for my taillight being out. They said, "You're wanted for 2 misdemeanors and a felony. You're Anwar Bostic." I was like, "I don't know who Anwar Bostic is. I'm Bryonn Bain." They're like, "No, you're Anwar Bostic. And so your alias is Bryonn Bain." They locked me up a second time.
What?
And this is 3 years later.
And you're wearing a suit.
And I'm looking.
You're a whole different part. Yes.
Custom. Right. This is not the Nordstrom rack. I'm wearing the custom suit. So
wow.
And that experience was even more traumatizing because the public defender didn't believe that I was who I said I was. And anyway, that experience is really what led Lonnie Guinier to be like, "Bryonn, you've got to write a hip hop opera about your story," and then lyrics from that. But it also impressed upon me that I spent all these years going into prisons as an artist. Then, like, as an activist, as an educator, I also felt comfortable in bridging these university spaces, these elite institutions, and these places where the most marginalized and oppressed people are. And so that really opened up the possibility for me to see linking these worlds in the work that I do as an artist, as a culture worker, as an activist. And then as I got further along in my academic career as a scholar. And so now I'm in conversations with the University of Ghana and the African Studies Institute about building a scholars exchange program where scholars can come from one place. There's a lot of student exchange programs, but we don't have a lot of scholars exchange programs. So trying to create that network and starting with Ghana as the lead. Ghana as the leader of the pack in so many ways, but also bridging other aspects of the diaspora, the 15 countries in the Caribbean, the 54 countries in Africa that all voted for reparations, very recently. Having them be a part of that is, I think, a part of the future of sort of the self-reliance that the repair part of reparations, I think, needs to embody. And I'm able to sort of do that because I have institutional relationships that have come from this journey.
Okay, that's the why of the where. So let's talk a little bit more about how you kind of cobble together this kind of making of a living, right? Because at some point, sure, you're an educator and then you're an artist, but what is the business like? So you mentioned Paula and she wanted to be your manager, but over time, how have you evolved as an entrepreneur? Because I think that's a little bit of what you are on the artistic side, in addition to being, in an academic space, which has its own business processes.
Yeah. Well, the first couple of years I taught as an adjunct, and I mentioned first at NYU, and then I taught for a couple of years at Columbia, and then went back to Brooklyn, taught at LIU in Brooklyn, taught at Harvard, and then went back to NYU a second time. And so initially as an adjunct, I was fresh out of grad school, fresh out of law school, and I would teach half the year on campus, and then I would spend half the year touring. And I'd be traveling all over performing. And, I learned very quickly that your students, if you're an artist and you're teaching students about the arts, about arts and culture, you're only as credible as the work you're creating. You know what I'm saying? So if you're going to come and teach me what's in the books, I don't need you, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They got AI for that, right? You know, so I learned very quickly. I think it was my first courses at NYU. I would think, you know, how can I do this in a way that, you know, is better than anything I've ever taken in a class? And so my students, I taught spoken word poetry, hip hop and spoken word. I think my first class at NYU. And the midterm was the students had to like do a show on a subway platform. So they had to go to West Fourth and they had to
I love
perform.
it.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So
Yeah.
and so I kept that as a kind of the midterm exam. You know, only had one experience where a student tried to jump the turnstile and got a summons, but then the students turned it into a fundraiser to pay for the students.
Okay.
Like, don't jump the turnstile. Please pay your fare if we're going to perform. So,
Right.
but their final exam, they had to organize, produce, and perform at the New York Poets Cafe. They finalized the show.
Yeah.
You know, and so after we done that for 2 or 3 years, and students started improvising and innovating, and they were like, okay, well, we're gonna do a chapbook. I hadn't published a book yet. They're like, we're gonna do a CD. They started selling their CDs at the show. It was a release party. I was like, okay, I gotta take a break and actually do a book and record a CD so I can be credible to them, because that's what
Yeah.
we do with them. So I did that. Took a break. And I think it was 2005, after I'd been teaching for like maybe 3 or 4 years. And then I recorded an album and I went on tour to promote it. And I'd been working on a book for a while. Finally, you know, got the book out. And it's so crazy. Like, you have to you can't pour from a full cup. You can't pour from an empty cup, right? Is that the same? I think, you know, so I definitely... I was able to receive so much from that period because I got a call from my old boss at MTV that he wanted me to be part of a pilot for a show on BET. And I was like, oh, great. So these opportunities just kind of kept opening up. And so I ended up for like 4 or 5 years being one of the hosts on a show called My Two Cents with Stacey Ann Shin, phenomenal queer. She describes herself as a Black Chinese lesbian feminist poet. We hosted a show together on BET with some other sort of less radical, progressive Black folks. That led to some film work. I got to come to the Bay Area, go to Ukiah and work on a film with folks out there. And so those kind of opportunities kept emerging, but I would always return back to NYU or to teaching for half a year to keep a foot in that world. And so after I sort of did that for a while and started these programs linking the universities to prisons at NYU, at Columbia, even at LIU in Brooklyn, we connected with Boys Town, a detention center, like halfway house down in Brooklyn. Then I got a call from a former NYU professor, Robin Kelly, who actually was at UCLA. And Robin saw me perform. I did a show at the Grammy Museum in 2014. And I'll never forget, because the night after that, the Ford Foundation told me, great show. I was like, yeah, we got a standing ovation. You know, David Simon from The Wire was there, and Nick Turner from, I think then he was with the Vera Institute, was there, interviewed me on stage. He's like, yeah, we raised $5 million in one night with your show. I was like, well, damn.
Wow. Exactly.
You know, fortunately, the next month they did give NYU 10% of that. NYU got a check for $500,000 to start the prison education program.
Oh, I love it. Okay.
But it was from that series of performances in California that Robin Kelly, about a year later, called me and was like, how do we get you out here? You know, because nobody's doing this in UCLA, and LA actually just surpassed New York in terms of the city with the most people incarcerated. You know what I'm saying? Rikers Island used to be that, but Rikers Island was lowering its numbers.
Yeah.
And the LA city jails were increasing. So, you know, so Robin Kelly and a really dope sister named Cheryl Harris at the law school, they recruited me to come to UCLA. And I was like, I'm going to go on like a 2 to 3 year contract. I'll be back in Brooklyn in no time. I'm not, you know, keeping my place in Brooklyn just because 10 years later, I'm still here. You know? And part of that was because I got tenure.
Oh, yeah.
The 4th year here.
Yeah. And that's really important. Like, you know, the tenure track places you in a whole different place in academia.
job security,
Yeah.
job security. I have a family. I got 3 sons, so
Yep.
like having that kind of stability. I mean, once they're all in college, we'll see what happens. But right
Yeah.
now, NYU is always a great place to land. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I had elders who really helped me
Mm.
understand what the opportunities were. And Robin, Cheryl, they were huge in helping me make the transition. But also another brother who came from NYU to California, Pedro Noguera. Pedro
Oh,
Noguera, who
okay.
was when
Yeah.
he actually was recruited by UCLA the same year I was recruited. And I'll never forget because we were at this little cafe that used to be by NYU, Cafe Brasilia. I don't think it's there anymore.
No,
But
not anymore.
yeah, we were in the cafe and I ran into him, and my son, his son had gone to St. John's with my youngest brother. And so we kind of knew of each other and connected. He's got Trini and like Venezuelan roots as well. And so we had all these connections. He taught at Harvard for a while. And so I asked him, I said, what did you ask for in your negotiations? Because I have an offer from Columbia to go back to the School of the Arts and run their prison programs and link up with artists, and but also UCLA is really pushing hard for me to come out there. And he was like, well, I'm a little older than you, young brother, He was about 15 years older than me, He's
Yeah.
also like the most cited the expert on public schools in the country, 200
Yeah.
articles, 15
Yeah.
books. He's ridiculous. But he was like, here's some things to think about. And so I took notes on that conversation.
Hmm.
And so I knew what kinds of things to ask for. So without getting into the weeds too
Yeah.
much on that, I definitely will say having an elder to guide me through the steps was a critical part of me understanding what this opportunity could be. Because I could come out here and it could have just been a year or two. And
Right.
knowing the language to use,
Yeah.
knowing specific things to ask for, like, oh, relocation costs, that's a thing. You should,
Mm-hmm.
there's a special loan for faculty if you're trying to buy a house. And okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to get, and initially it wasn't even tenure track. It was like a contract.
Yeah.
But this is where also having legal training helped, because I was able to negotiate a contract that said at a certain point, I can be considered for tenure if
Right.
a line is open.
Yes.
Lo and behold, after my first year, the
It
line
opened up.
opened. The contract made it possible. And
Yeah.
after they seen what I was doing after a year, they're like, "Oh yeah, let's keep him here." So,
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was, I think, the sequence of things that really facilitated me being where I'm at right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. Nice. Speaking of elders, I know that you worked with an elder that was someone that I interacted with on a writer's retreat, the Wild Seeds Writers Retreat in upstate New York a couple years ago. And this is the first time they ever had a screenwriters cohort. And our workshop leader was Jamal Joseph.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Oh, Jamal. Yes. Love Jamal. Jamal was actually a big part of why I was thinking about going to Columbia School of the Arts, because he was there.
Yes. Yeah. He's still there.
Yes.
I believe so, yeah.
Youngest Black Panther to be incarcerated. Actually, this morning, my son Emmanuel was just getting ready to go to school. He's doing a presentation on the Black Panther 10-point program. So I literally this morning read the 10-point program to him and talked about Jamal being the youngest Black Panther ever incarcerated at 15 years old. My son is 16, so that really resonated. And Jamal, directed lyrics from I've had 3 directors on lyrics from Lockdown. I've had Man Teo, Gina Belafonte, and Jamal Joseph. He directed at Rikers Island when we did at Rikers.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'll never forget, because that show almost didn't happen. We've been planning for 9 months to do it at Rikers, to film it at Rikers.
Yeah.
And Jamal's directing, and I get a call literally 2 weeks before the show, and it's Tim Robbins at the Actors Gang, the Shawshank Redemption Academy Award-winning actor, Tim Robbins.
Sure.
And
yeah.
I'd done lyrics at his theater in Culver City at the Actors Gang. Okay. And he's like, Bryonn, how would you like to do lyrics at the White House? The Obama White House, mind you.
Right. I could say, but that's the Obama.
Not this White House.
Yeah.
The Obama White House, it was like the last November. He's like, November 17th, I think the date was. I was like, I would love to. Can we do it on the 16th or the 18th? He was like, no, this is the date they've given us. They asked me who I wanted to bring. I'm asking you, so take it or leave it. What is it going to be?
Yeah.
I was like, I got to leave it. I can't do that. Because for 9 months, I've been planning to perform the show at Rikers. Like, They didn't let Jay-Z film at Rikers. They didn't let Lil Wayne film at Rikers. I've been teaching at Rikers for 10 years through NYU, through
Mm-hmm.
Columbia. I can't be like, sorry, y'all,
Yeah.
I'm canceling the day. So I had to say no to the Obama White House to go to Rikers
Wow.
Island. And it was like we get there and it's raining cats and dogs. We're covering all the equipment. Jamal's there trying to give us a pep talk to keep us positive. We get to the door and the COs tell us, we're sorry. We had to tear gas the unit. There was a riot. We're not going to be able to let you in at all today. I was like, all I could hear was my mother's voice in my head. Boy, you're stupid. You should go to the White House. And I'm like, what? So we get on
Wow.
Jumaane Williams, the city councilman, my brother went
Yeah.
to college with. We
Yeah.
call. We're like, so 7 hours later, we end up getting in, and we get
Okay.
the show. But there
At
was definitely a
least.
moment where I was like, what did I do? What did I do?
I
So
can imagine.
yeah, but Jamal helped us keep it together. So he's a phenomenal brother, phenomenal.
Yeah.
So many great stories, and just a blessing to work with him. And it's the good human being. I'm been fortunate enough to call an elder and an ally and a confidant.
Yeah.
Work.
Yeah. And that connection with the prisons, it's just what we have here. So let's talk about Lyrics from Lockdown,
Yeah.
because that is a seminal work that you had an executive producer who is, I mean, what can we say? Harry Belafonte was
Yeah.
part of this project. So tell us the process of getting it from that recommendation to this presence that is touring the world and will be performed
Yeah.
in Ghana soon.
Yeah. Yeah. We're looking at December and January for the National Theater of Ghana. I just got off a call with folks who are trying to work on it. Shout out to GeoVision, the local folks in Ghana who are working on it. My man Larry Lowe and Alpison and Pan African writers. So after my experience of being incarcerated and Lonnie Guinea throwing the idea out there about developing it into a show, the hip hop opera, she called it, I got letters from all over the world and like big, long stacks of letters that I read as many as I could. And one really stood out to me. And it was this brother who was on death row. And he was thrown on death row at 17 years old for crime he didn't commit. And his name was Nana Williams. And I'll never forget, he wrote me in this letter. It was like, brother, please keep telling your story because you got all them overpriced degrees and somebody might actually believe you because they don't believe me. He's like, I got people reading your article, Walking While Black, on death row. My lady copied it and they're all reading it here. We're talking about how this experience relates to our experience. And so, I was so moved. I started writing. We started writing letters. We started exchanging, like literally, sending poetry back and forth, just connected. I went to go meet him and we became friends. We became brothers over the years. And for the last 20 plus years, we've been in communication. And it was really realizing that, he's just a little bit older than me, but, realizing that with a few different moves,
Yeah,
he could have been in my shoes and I could have been in his.
exactly.
He could have been, instead of on death row, he could have been at Harvard Law School. A few wrong moves, I could have been on death row. And just having that realization that we both, ended up trapped in the system in different ways through no fault of our own, but just because of the bodies we were born into and the environments we were born into. And so that really inspired me to create this show. The fact that I could actually use all this privilege and access these elite institutions, the media that I had access to shine a light, not just on my story, but also on his story. Because if being locked up for days over multiple experiences could actually affect you in the way that it affected me and be so traumatizing and triggering for me, imagine that over decades.
Right.
And what would it be to give people an a glimpse of that and a window into that world? And so the show incorporates his letters from death row and his poetry. In 2005, we began advocating for him from the time we met. But then in 2005, the Supreme Court actually changed the law. So the United States finally decided to join the rest of the civilized world and stop executing youth, people who are, incarcerated or charged as minors. So he was charged at 17. His death sentence became a life sentence. Some would say paraphrases of the same thing. So was off death row. And so he became a real leader in the prison. So the show evolved because at the same time, Blackout Arts Collective had these chapters around the country. I was touring with Blackout. I was touring, doing the National Poetry Slam stuff. And basically every time I got invited to go to like a college, a university, like a poetry slam venue, I would say, okay, well, can you link up with the local prison? The college, university, y'all got to pay me because y'all got a budget. The prison don't got no budget, but I'm going there for free. So I went to prisons
Mm.
for free all around the country, and I
Mhm.
would sometimes go by myself. Sometimes we would organize the Lyrics on Lockdown tour every summer for 5 years
Sure, sure.
and take artists and educators into prisons after doing political education work inspired by the Black Panther Party, because you got to know what you're talking about. So we would have
Yeah.
grassroots organizations like the folks who created Wild Seed, my folks from back in the day,
Mhm.
Naima and Alixa,
Yeah.
and all the Center for New Leadership folks, all the Prison Moratorium Project folks, the Harm Reduction Coalition, Adrienne Marie Brown, before she blew up, she was doing our political education workshops on harm reduction, Drug
Wow.
Policy Alliance. And once you did those sessions, I raised the funds. I went and raised the money for us to go on tour and to
Mhm.
get into the prisons, and helped to negotiate that with some other folks on the team. But we wanted to make sure every artist on this trip had political education, so we know what we're doing going into these spaces. The artwork we're creating reflects the work of people who are on the ground doing this work, the activists, the organizers, the grassroots community-based organizations. And so for 5 years, we would go into prisons around the country during these tours. In the summer, the Lyrics on Lockdown tour. But then I would also, in my own work as an artist, touring for my album, opportunities I got through the TV show that I was on, I would always try to link a local prison or juvenile hall or correctional facility to whatever they're bringing me out for, and try to link the local community in a conversation that could continue after I left. So it wasn't just about the tour. It was about the tour as a spark or a stimulus for continuing community building and organizing in that space. And so
Mhm.
everywhere I went, I would share pieces of this show it was evolving into this show. So the spoken word, the music, we had songs like Freedom Got a Shotgun, we would sing, songs like Ancestors Watching, we would sing, and I would try out different poems. Some didn't work so well, we got rid of them. Some, they got a good response, we fine-tuned those. And that work, inspired and influenced by folks in prisons around the country in 25 states, is what evolved into Lyrics from Lockdown, which is the show, which is now, our next show actually is Carnegie Hall on June 27th. Where we
Oh, awesome.
and live streaming
Wow.
it for the first time to Sing Sing Prison.
Wow.
Carnegie has never
Wow.
live streamed to Sing Sing Prison. They've had musicians going there for 15 years, but this will be the first time, but it won't be the last. So we have an opportunity to make some history, to break
Yeah.
some ground, and to inspire connecting our brothers and sisters who are behind bars around the country and around the world to storytelling and to making
Right.
art and culture at the
Yeah.
highest level possible in places like Carnegie Hall, places like Lincoln Center, places like Broadway, which we've been invited to. We've been invited to as a next step. So
Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. Before I ask this next question about how lyrics comes to Ghana, let's talk about Glocal speak. So a word or phrase or saying that's a meaningful part of your local experience or wherever you felt local, and how or why you come to value it as Glocal speak.
I think I have a couple options. I'm trying to choose between the word that I've been saying the most since I got back from Ghana, and I think it might just be the sound of the word, is kelewele.
Oh, okay.
And the reason
I know,
because
right?
I grew up, my mother would always have in the weekends, we call it sweet plantain, fried
Yeah.
plantain in Trinidad.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
also I have family in the Spanish-speaking Caribbean, and they say maduros. Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, they say
Yeah.
maduros, plátano maduros. But then when I got to Ghana and they were like, kelewele, I was like, kelewele. They brought, I was like, plantain.
Yeah.
I just love the way kelewele sounds. But I think
Yeah.
kelewele feels like a global concept.
Yes. Yes, it is. It is. It is.
Everything can use a little more kelewele in it.
I love it because it's a sugar and spice. And everything nice. Yeah. Okay, that's a good one. And you got us some global cuisine speaking there. So that's great. Okay, so Ghana. So tell us, I have recently had some really trying experiences with justice in Ghana, dealing with police around what would be considered family matters. Like in one instance, we've gone and they've told us family matters, but then when someone decides that they want to buy justice, then you're at the mercy of who paid the highest bid and who got there first. And so I say that to say prisons, probably like the US, there's this issue of corruption potentially, right? That is in there. And the experience that people who don't have means experience being in the prison system is probably a universal thing. And so in your experience going to Ghana, first of all, how did that precipitate? How did you make your way there? And then what was your experience dealing with correctional facilities, correctional staff, all of that?
Yeah, I actually I did have an opportunity to go to visit a prison while I was there. I met with the Ghana Prison Services, and then we went to a women's prison at Akuse, which is like two
Okay.
hours
Yeah.
outside of Accra.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have experiences with the police, and I was there 9 days, so I wasn't there long enough to probably experience the kinds of things other folks there for longer periods of time experience. But I will say, I know my brother got locked up, overnight in Ghana years ago,
Oh,
and
wow.
he did realize that, yeah, and being able to pay gets you justice, and not being able to pay doesn't. Which, I think we're fooling ourselves if we want to act like that doesn't exist in the United States. It just costs
Yeah,
more. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
You can get a presidential pardon if you got, $1 million,
Yeah.
right? You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? So
Yep.
you can't buy corruption at the same scale. It's a different scale,
Exactly.
but it's still
Yeah.
happening, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
in Panama, I lived in Panama for a couple years as a kid. Definitely, you get out of it, you get pulled over for speeding, you pay off the cop. You're gonna, you know what I'm saying? That
Yeah.
is not, but the United States is not immune from it. Just it has better PR, right?
Mm-hmm. That part.
So I did at the women's prison, and talking to folks there, I did realize, we found out there was one woman who was doing a 3 to 5 year sentence for stealing a goat. I was like, what are most of the crimes here? Like, a lot of crimes in states are, drug related, and they're like, no,
Mm-hmm.
it's robbery, people who stole something. I was like, they said that we have some women here from other countries who have been here for sex
Mm-hmm.
trafficking, and they punish the women and not the men who are
The
behind the whole thing,
traffickers.
really profiting
Yeah.
from the thing, the traffickers. But they said the women here, it's mostly for, stealing, and I was like, 3 to 5 years for a goat? Like, she wasn't stealing that goat to try to go live rich and lavish somewhere, right? She's
Exactly.
trying to feed somebody. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? This is a property crime. So we need to think about the ways in Ghana, like in the US, how the system itself is guilty, right?
Mm-hmm.
The system
Mm-hmm.
itself is more guilty than the people that it's claiming it's punishing. So, I was excited by the opportunity because when I was there, there's dirt floors under the prison, and
Yeah.
I'm talking to folks there. I'm like, well, what opportunities do women have when they leave here? How difficult is it? They're like, well, it's hard as it is, but if you have the strike of being locked up against you, it's even harder.
Yeah.
And on top of that, they said the literacy rate here, most of the women here
Mm-hmm.
in this space can't read or write. So that's why they're
Yep.
stealing, because they can't have many other options.
Yes.
I said,
Yes.
well, okay, well, what kind of resources do you have here? Is there a library? They laughed. I said, okay. I said, well, you know what? I've helped to build a library through book drives. I said, if
Mm-hmm.
we do a prison book drive, it's
Mm-hmm.
a really easy way for people to contribute, because everybody has a book they'll give you. Do some events, make the cost of admission a book. You reduce half off if you bring a book, and you can make a competition at the university, or student organization, which department can donate the most books. Before you know it, I said, we had one prison, the women's prison in LA, where I did the book drive at UCLA when I first started here. They got so many books, they said, we have no more space. Send them to the
Right.
juvenile hall.
Yeah.
I said, I was shipping books back to New York because we had so many books.
Wow.
And I
Yeah.
had the whole university activated in the department, because not everybody is going to teach in a prison. Not everybody's
Right.
going to take a class in a prison. Not everybody's going to fundraise for your prison program. Not everybody's going to be leading the movement, the charge, the protest with the bullhorn. But there's many different roles. And
Mm-hmm.
it's really easy for somebody to donate a book and feel a part of something, feel like they're a part of this thing. I helped build this library. I said, I can help to do that if that's something you want help with. Just the next day, I had a meeting at the University of Ghana.
Okay.
And immediately they were like, okay, so when you coming back? I was like, I guess I got to make a trip to come back. And so I said, if you do a big event, it really helps to bring people together. I said,
Yeah.
let's do the National Theater. Let's
Yeah.
rock up the National Theater. Let's use it to activate this book drive. Let's use that to build the library at the women's prison. I said, do y'all have a computer lab? They laughed at me again.
Yeah.
They're like, there are no
Yeah.
computers. I said, every 18 months, UCLA gets new computers. I could bring bags of
Mm.
laptop computers if you have
Mm.
university folks come and help do the IT stuff, so that's all the vision. So to come back in December, January, do the show, help build the library, bring laptops, link the university so that students, professors can kind of have an ongoing relationship to actually get digital literacy skills, basic literacy skills to be something that women at Akusa prison, and then other prisons hopefully will follow as a follow-up to
Yeah.
that. And because I literally taught the first class in the NYU prison education program with George Schulman, who had never been in a prison, with
Yeah.
Nikhil Singh, who at that time had never been in a prison. You
Yeah.
know, the success of that program, giving full rides now to NYU to folks who were at Walk Hill Prison. One of my brothers did time. Like to see that blossom, there's no way we can have NYU Accra and not have NYU Accra be involved in this in some way. So
Yeah.
that's the next thing. So we got to get our brother who's running the program there to get involved very soon.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, he's a writer. So
Awesome.
books and writing are a great thing. So
Wow.
I'm volunteering too, because
Yes.
there's so many forgotten groups. And that you mentioned these women who are basically in cells still. Like the prison system is not an institution that is rehabilitating,
Yeah.
especially in our under-resourced economies. And so that you have this expertise and that you're sharing it is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I'm actively fundraising because, there's no big budget just that's bringing me out there. I'm actually going to
Mm,
funders who funded this work before to say, look,
okay.
this is important. This is important. And I have some interested parties, but we're
Okay.
pulling together sponsors to make it happen. So if there are folks out there who are interested in being a part of this vision and this mission,
Hmm.
reach out. I have full faith and confidence. Whenever we put it out into the universe, the universe
Exactly.
responds, and but it's going to be exciting to be able to bring this out there and to help launch so much in a pivotal year on the 70th anniversary of
Yes.
Ghana's independence, the
Yeah.
year that Ghana leads the charge at the UN for reparations for the whole diaspora. It's a
Yeah.
special time. I've been to 7 African countries, and this 7 is a holy number, and Ghana was the 7th for a reason, and it's becoming more and more clear. This birthday gift to myself of going to Ghana, going home for the first time was so much more than I ever imagined.
Yeah. Yeah. We love it. We love it. So thinking about that experience and what that is about mindset, let's hear about your mindset hack. How do you hack into your mindset? Flip the switch.
Meditation.
Mm.
Meditation is a
Hmm.
big thing for me.
Hmm.
And I've been meditating for I don't know, a decade, maybe over. Wow, 2007, 8, maybe. Yes,
Okay.
for some time, and I was first introduced to it. I wasn't looking for it, I wasn't. It's just, these
Mm.
been so blessed. I was asked to be an official. They needed a lawyer and a police officer to be officials for the Guinness Book World Records meditation, the largest middle school meditation, and it was at a middle school in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
so they invited me in, and I was just officiating. And as I saw these kids meditating for just like 10 minutes, they meditate beginning and end of the day. And, as I learned about transcendental meditation,
Yeah. Yeah.
and saw the impact of it, like this was a school that like had like one of the highest disciplinary rates of all the schools in the Bay Area. And at that
Mm.
point, once they started this meditation thing, it's like it completely, zeroed out those problems. Like, because kids don't meditate at the end of the day for 10 minutes and then want to go fight you in the alley. You know what I'm saying? Like, you
Right.
process a whole lot. So that really
Exactly.
hit me. So I ended up doing the training, and it's been a really important part of my life ever since. So meditation is a really important piece, and I feel it when I don't do it, and I miss it in the morning. I have to get back to it before the
Hmm.
day ends. So
Yeah.
that's an important part, I think, of my own awareness and of kind of like changing the energy, because it helps to ground me at the beginning of the day. And I think the bit of breath work that I've done to understand the relationship between breathing and consciousness is a really important part of my life as well.
We like it. Meditation
Yes.
and breath work. Like you said,
Yes.
the breathing. Yeah. The air, the breath. That's
Yeah.
so important. So I want to ask you about who you are when you're not like in this creative grind and the work of it all. Are you a reader? Are you a watcher? Are you a listener? It's hard to ask creatives this question, but I'm going to do it. And what are some of your favorites reads, watches, or listens? Or what else do you do in your not on the clock time?
I think of myself as kind of a sponge. Like I just love to
Mm.
absorb,
Mhm.
energy from like inspiring media. So I read, I'm a reader and a writer. I read and write every day, and I think, most recently, I just read Muhammad Ali's biography. I just read that.
Ah.
And it was so great because a brother of mine named Saul Guy, people know him for the Waving Flag video. He produced that. And his sister, actually, Shoshana, she produced the 1619 Project. So they're like an amazing
Wow.
family.
Hmm.
And Saul's documentary he talked about how he and his father were that together. I started reading it. I bought a copy for my father and for my oldest son. So we had like three generations reading the Ali book at the same time. So that's like a recent, on my favorite reads. I also have read like, just everything I could get my hands on by Thich Nhat Hanh because I'm a big fan of Thich
Oh
Nhat
yeah,
Hanh.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I love his work. And so, those are some of the things that I read. I mean, the sort of my canon
Hmm.
sort of inspirations are, the Black arts movement, poets, Nikki
Hmm.
Giovanni, Sonia Sanchez, Maya Angelou, Baraka I studied when I was in school, but then also before them, the blues women, their music is poetry, Ma Rainey, Bessie Smith, Billie Holiday. And so I think poetry, music, those are other things that I'm constantly absorbing. In the film space, I saw Sinners 5 times in the theaters.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
and I was already working with Delroy Lindo. He was a
Oh yeah,
producer
yeah.
who's been involved, and he, give me a lot of great feedback to help develop lyrics further. But I loved Sinners. Ironically, I have been friends with Michael B. Jordan's dad for like 8 years before he even blew up. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like I met him. It feels random, but I don't believe in coincidence. I think it's God co-signing. I had a Lyft driver who picked me up in a Lexus, and I was like, what are you doing, bro? He was like, what do you do? I was like, I'm working in prisons. He was like, you see that movie Just Mercy? I was like, yes, it's coming out soon. It's gonna be good. He's like, yeah, like Jamie Foxx in it. He's like, yeah, and then that other brother. I was like, yeah, Michael B. Jordan. He was like, yeah, yeah. He said, take my information, brother. I want to stay in touch with you. I like your energy. I like the work you do in the prisons and whatnot. I said, sure. He said, what's your email? He said, it's MICHELJORDAN. I said, your name is Michael Jordan? He said, yeah. I said, like Michael B. Jordan? He said, that's my son. I was like, that was before I think Creed, Black Panther.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not a new friend of the family. You know what I'm saying?
Right, 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 right,
Before
right,
the
right.
Oscar, so
Yeah, yeah.
so so that was really special because when Black Panther blew up, I guess sometime after that, he left LA, went to Ghana. So I don't know if
Yeah.
you saw this, but
Oh,
at
okay.
the Oscars, Michael B. Jordan didn't
That's
shout out Two Chainz.
right. That's
He
right.
didn't say God bless America. He said, my dad is somewhere. He just flew in from Ghana. I emailed him
Yeah.
3 days before that, like, hey, brother Michael, what's up? We gonna link up in Ghana. He's like, oh, I'm going to LA to support my son. This little award
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So all these connections to Ghana. My sister Essie Blankson Wood, she has a clothing company called Amba
Ah, okay.
Clothing. And
Mhm.
done the clothing design for me for a bunch of the performances shows that I've done. Like whenever I've done Sing Sing a bunch of times and TED Talks, and she always blesses me with like the flyest threads straight out of Ghana. You know what I'm saying?
I love it.
So I
Yeah.
have a lot of really powerful connections. Esther Arma is another Black.
Yes. Another Glocal
Yes.
citizen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm in her new film, which is premiering in New
Oh,
York.
wonderful. Yeah. I'm gonna miss it.
Yeah.
I missed it in Ghana. I'm gonna miss it there,
Okay. Well,
but
shout out
I'll
to
hit her
Esther
up.
and to the
Yes.
film. Movie Masculinity is coming to
Yes.
New York April 29th. So I wanted to
Yeah.
give it a shout out. But yeah,
Yes.
so though all these connections, I feel like it's just been a matter of time. And the ones that got there, the week I literally came, my only itinerary was see my guy Larry Lowe, meet a local cat poet doing work in the prisons, and
Mhm.
then see Cape Coast and Elmina. That was it. That was it. I had like a one or 2 day itinerary. Every single day, like, ended up being packed. And there's like news stories coming out about all the things we're doing. And it was just,
Yeah.
it turned into a whole other thing. So it was
Yeah.
divine. It was divinely
Yeah.
inspired. So grateful that it went so well. So
Yeah. That is the magic that can be Accra in Ghana. Like you can just land and then just all of a sudden, and it's a whole new movement. So I love that. I love that about your story. Thank you for those. I appreciate those. Bryonn, this has been so lovely. I thank you so much for your time and your energy. And before we sign off for today, do you have any last thoughts you'd like to share? Any new or next? Anything else that you haven't expressed in this conversation?
I did some work in a couple of prisons in the UK. And I was surprised to see how many of the brothers there were from Africa, different countries.
Yeah.
And we workshopped scenes. They had just read the autobiography of Malcolm X. And I teach autobiography of Malcolm X. So I was there. I actually was able to share some, they have there's chapters that were censored from his autobiography. So I shared some of that. We staged scenes that they selected from his life. And I've been working on a play called By Any Means X, inspired by that day in the prison. One of the characters is inspired by Kwame Nkrumah. So part of me being in Ghana was also to think about that character. So that's the next project.
I love it.
That's something that's on my heart that I want to share. And beyond that, it's just, I think, always wonderful to end with the words of one of our freedom fighters, Sister Sada Shakur, who said, "It is our duty to fight for freedom. It is our duty to win. We must love and protect each other. We have nothing to lose but our chains."
I love it. So be it. Thank you. Thank you so much.
We'll talk soon.
Yes. All right, Glocal citizens, this has been another episode of the podcast. You can catch us Tuesdays with new episodes at glocalcitizenspod.com or wherever you get your podcasts. Folks, show notes this week are going to be awesome. So please check them out. Write us a review. Reach out. We need your support for these programs and these projects that Bryonn is building. And until next time, deep breaths, meditate, and bye for now.